I'm 7 months pregnant and I feel completely alone. You'd think that being married, pregnant with our second child, and financially stable would make me feel fulfilled. But most nights I go to sleep feeling more like a roommate than a wife. Unseen, untouched, and unheard. My husband hands me his paycheck, helps with dishes sometimes, and plays with our toddler for a few minutes before diving into his video games. On the surface, he's a good man, but behind closed doors, there's no warmth, no conversation, no intimacy, just silence. And lately, that silence makes me think about someone I shouldn't. There are marriages that seem peaceful on the surface. The husband gives all his salary, sometimes does the dishes. The wife is pregnant with their second child. But inside, there's a terrifying cold void. No words of confiding, no hugs, not even the slightest intimacy. In that loneliness, the wife begins to miss her ex-lover. Is it just a moment of weakness, or a sign of a depleted heart? On the surface, I have a husband that many other women might wish for. No drinking, no wasteful spending, gives all his monthly salary to his wife, and is willing to help wash the dishes when he has time. But all of that is just the surface, while inside there is a vast, unspoken distance between the two of us. We live under the same roof, eat at the same table, but we are like two strangers. He doesn't share his feelings, doesn't ask if I'm tired, hasn't said a single sweet word since I became pregnant with our second child. Every day, I only see him go to work, come home to eat, then fall asleep or bury his head in his phone. As for me, I am quietly pregnant, worrying about the baby, and swallowing my grievances that no one knows about. What bothers me the most is the long-lasting coldness, not only mentally but also physically. We don't hug, don't kiss, and haven't been intimate in bed for a long time. The last contact between us was probably holding hands when we went to the prenatal checkup, and that was just a formality. I have tried many times to speak up, to find a way to talk, to get him closer, but all my efforts have fallen into a void. He just stays silent or nods perfunctorily, and then everything goes back to normal. Sometimes I wonder, did I do something wrong? Or did love simply die without me realizing it? I don't ask for big things. I just wish for a tight hug when I'm tired, a caring question when I stay up late tossing and turning, or simply his gaze looking at me with a little affection. But all of those things seem to have disappeared from this life. I'm like a shadow quietly passing through my own marriage, present but invisible, and when feelings are frozen for too long, people's souls will naturally seek out the place where they were once warmed, even though they know it's wrong, dangerous, and can break everything. But I can't stop my heart from remembering my ex, not because he's perfect, but simply because I once felt truly loved. I'm like a shadow quietly passing through my own marriage, present but invisible. And when feelings are frozen for too long, people's souls will naturally seek out the place where they were once warmed, even though they know it's wrong, dangerous, and can break everything. But I can't stop my heart from missing my ex, not because he was perfect, but because I once felt truly loved. The loneliness of marriage is not the same as the loneliness of being single. It smolders, lingers, and erodes the heart in a very special way. When you live under the same roof with someone who once held your hand and promised to be with you for 100 years, but each day you feel more and more distant, the hurt is no longer simply sadness. It is a crack that silently spreads in the soul. I used to think that if I just tried to cultivate and preserve it, everything would get better. But the more I tried, the more I realized that I was just a solo performer in a relationship. I cooked, did the laundry, took care of the children, cleaned, and then silently retreated to a corner when he came home tired from work. We lived in the same space, but our minds never touched. He no longer asked me how my day was, nor did he remember our wedding day, nor old memories. It seemed that in his world, I was just a part of responsibility and no longer a wife. I tried many times to initiate gentle conversations, intimate gestures to draw him closer, but in return there were only soulless nods, evasive eyes, or worse, endless silence. One day, I pretended to drop a cup to see if he would come back. No, he did not react except for a slight frown, then continued to stare at the phone screen. I sat there, surrounded by broken porcelain, my heart like that cup, broken into small pieces that no one bothered to pick up. I did not need anyone to write poems for me every day, nor did I expect sweet words of love like in the movies. I just wanted to be a true part of my husband's life, to see that I was important, that I was present in his heart. But instead, I was just a shadow, an acquaintance in the same house. No one called my name with warm eyes anymore. No one remembers that I used to be afraid of the cold, that I used to like eating ripe jackfruit, that I used to like holding hands when crossing the street. Those little things, the glue that holds a relationship together, have now been eroded to the point of emptiness. That feeling of being a stranger is very scary. It makes me afraid of the evenings, afraid to step into the house, afraid of the sound of the key being inserted into the lock, because I know that behind that door, I continue to play the role of an invisible wife. And then, unconsciously, I started dreaming about old dates where I used to be looked at with loving eyes, used to listen to every little thing. That feeling of being a stranger is very scary. It makes me afraid of the evenings, afraid of entering the house, afraid of the sound of the key being inserted into the lock, because I know that behind that door I will continue to play the role of an invisible wife. And then, unconsciously, I started dreaming about old dates, where I used to be looked at with loving eyes, used to listen to every little thing. But then I was startled back to reality, the reality where the man who used to be the one I loved the most was gradually becoming an invisible silence in my life. He was still there, still coming home regularly, still eating the meals I cooked, still playing with the children a few minutes before going to bed. But other than the actions that were like a fixed habit, I no longer felt any warmth from him. He lives like a programmed machine, wakes up in the morning, goes to work, comes home at noon to eat and sleep, goes to work in the afternoon, comes home to play games and sleeps again. Everything repeats itself regularly, like an emotionless cycle. I often ask myself, where am I in that cycle? Am I still a part of his thoughts? But there has never been an answer, because we don't talk. Or rather, I talk and he doesn't listen. He has never asked me how I feel today. When I was sick, he just gave me medicine and turned away. When I was sad, he chose silence instead of hugging me. Once, I burst into tears during a meal because I was so tired and felt sorry for myself. He just looked up for a second and continued eating. His gaze was so cold that it made me feel like a temporary guest in my own house. Not a handshake, not a "are you okay?" That indifference was even more painful than betrayal. Perhaps he thought he had fulfilled his duty, giving me enough money, not doing anything wrong, occasionally washing the dishes or playing with the children. But he didn't know that what I needed more than material things was sincere care, the feeling of being present in the heart of the husband I loved. Sometimes, just a text message, "Are you tired?" a proactive question about the baby in my belly was enough to make me feel that I was still meaningful. But all of that was not there. He locked himself in his own world, where I was not allowed to enter, a world with work, games, and concerns that I could not understand. Every time I tried to pull him back, he retreated deeper into his cold shell. It was as if love was a luxury or even a nuisance in his life, and I, his wife, the one carrying his second child, had no place in that world. I was tired of that indifference. I began to no longer want to tell stories, no longer want to try. And in that emptiness, old memories silently returned, patting my mind like a fragile salvation. I was tired of that indifference. I began to no longer want to tell stories, no longer want to try. And in that emptiness, old memories silently returned, patting my mind like a fragile salvation. What made all the sadness in me multiply was that I was pregnant with my second child. The baby was present in my belly like a miracle, but also a silent witness to the loneliest time of a mother. 7 months of pregnancy passed without a word of comfort from my husband, without a hug from behind, without a hand placed gently on my belly to ask, "Is the baby kicking yet?" I felt like I was left alone on the journey of motherhood. I went to the prenatal checkup alone, taking the bus and squeezing through the crowd of strangers, my stomach heavy and my soul empty. The ultrasounds, listening to the heartbeat, should have been the happiest moments for both husband and wife. But he wasn't there. Or if he was, he only went because you told me to go, his eyes still on the phone, his hands still tightly holding the game console. I don't blame him for not having time. I'm just sad because he doesn't have the heart. My body was more tired every day. My big belly made it difficult for me to sleep. My legs were swollen. My back ached. My first child was still young, didn't understand anything, still asked me to hold him, play with him, and put him to sleep. At those times, I just wished I had a shoulder to lean on, an arm to protect me, a gentle voice saying, "Let me do it." But he was still calm, as if I was living a perfect pregnancy, without pain, without emotions, without needing to be cared for. One day, I sat in front of the mirror for a long time, looking at my pale face, dark circles under my eyes, sagging belly, messy hair, no longer recognizable as the woman who once made him crazy. I felt so sorry for myself. A mother, a wife, a woman who is carrying the burden of the whole family, but no one saw, no one acknowledged, no one appreciated. I know I am not alone in this world. There are millions of women who are pregnant and raising children in silence. But what hurts me the most is that I am not alone in the world, but alone in my own marriage. And while I was increasingly emotionally drained, he continued to live his own life, as if the child and I were two planets orbiting a dead sun. Every time the child kicked in my belly, I felt choked up. It was life, hope, the only connection between me and the beauty that remained in this marriage. But that also made me more afraid. I was afraid that after the child was born, I would continue to live alone, continue to be a mother, a wife, a housewife, without ever being a woman who was loved again. Every time the child kicked in my belly, I felt choked up. It was life, hope, the only connection between me and the beauty that remained in this marriage. But that also made me more afraid. I was afraid that after my child was born, I would continue to live alone, continue to be a mother, a wife, a housewife, and never be a woman who was loved again. It was during those long, sleepless nights that I began to miss my ex, not as a desire to return, but as a self-protective instinct, as a life buoy for my drowning emotions. I missed his eyes when he looked at me, missed the way he gently listened to me, even if it was just a trivial matter, missed the feeling of being cared for sincerely, not out of responsibility, but out of love. I used to be a girl full of life, who knew how to love, knew how to dream, and was confident that I deserved to be respected. But when I look back at myself now, I see a woman who is gradually fading away, existing like a shadow, and the memory of my ex is like a small piece of mirror, reflecting the image of me when I was still loved. A different me, a me who used to be radiant. I feel guilty. I am pregnant. I have a family. I should focus on the present. I should take care of this home. But the human heart is not a switch. You can turn it off. You can forget. I did not choose to remember. I did not intentionally seek it out. But when emotions are starved for too long, the heart will find a place to stay. I am afraid to admit it. Afraid of being judged as promiscuous, as unfaithful. But does anyone understand that for a pregnant woman to remember another man is not a womanizer, but a cry for help, a silent cry for help, because no one is around to listen? I do not want to hurt anyone. I just want to be seen as a woman, still having emotions, still needing to be loved, still fragile like anyone else. There are nights when I cry a lot, not knowing if it is because of my husband or because I have changed. I am confused by myself. I don't know whether I should continue or stop to keep what's left of my self-respect. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong or just being honest with my own feelings. That line is so thin that even a sigh can make me feel unsteady. I don't blame my husband, nor do I blame I just wish that someone, just once, would hold my hand tightly and say, "I'm here. You're not alone." But when that wish never comes true, sometimes the past becomes the only safe haven, even though I know that place has long since closed.